Welcome. It is FMBN podcast. My name is Olachi Anikwa. Do you know that Nigeria has the lowest home ownership rate in the world? Do you also know that the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria has made it their mission to provide affordable home ownership by providing sustainable liquidity, innovative products and services? These products and services are some of the things we bring to you on this podcast to give you access to affordable housing. Before we dive in, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. Can I contribute to apply for NHF loan after benefiting from home renovation loan? Let's hear the answer.
A contributor can apply for an NHF loan after benefiting from HRL. However, such contributor must have liquidated the home renovation loan granted to him or her.
Welcome back. This program is proudly sponsored by the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. In a recent development with a housing deficit of 28 million in Nigeria, the Vice President of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, has said that Nigeria will need about 21 trillion naira to fix the housing menace. At the 17th African International Housing Show held in Abuja, the CEO of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Madu Hamman, highlighted the challenges of data in Nigeria housing sector and also stated the efforts and achievements of the bank. Let's listen to him.
A lot has been said about the importance of data in planning and execution of policies towards any form of development. And it's more critical for our sector, that's the housing and mortgage sector, because like Kisha had presented here, a lot of the data we have within our system cannot be trusted. It cannot be trusted because there has been no empirical investigation to arrive at this data that is widely used at various fora across the country. If you invite 5 presenters to give you information on housing in Nigeria, I'm sure all of them will come out with different figures because we do not have a verifiable source of data or information across the housing sector and mortgage financing sector in the country. At the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, like our moderator has said, we have over 5 million contributors to the NHF scheme. These are workers across the country, both in the private and public sectors. And of recent, the bank had also introduced products for the informal sector in order to bring them into the scheme. So in terms of contribution, we want to expand the base of the NHF scheme by bringing in the informal sector, which is the largest economic sector we have in the country in terms of contribution to our GDP. But in terms of delivery of mortgage, finance, and housing, I have to say we are not doing well at all. We are not doing well because data within the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria itself shows that from inception of the National Housing Fund scheme to date, we've only been able to generate about 28,000 mortgages to Nigerians within the National Housing Fund scheme. And this is a far cry from the 5-point-something million contributors to the scheme. Most of the data that Kisha presented, I believe, are generally from sources that are provided by the National Housing Fund, that's the Federal Mortgage Bank, and other government-associated developers. So in terms of reporting, the Federal Mortgage Bank reports on a biannual basis to the Office of the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics. We report the data on total residential properties financed within that period, and then accumulated data from inception to date. We also give information to the Bureau of Statistics, information on mortgages created within the reporting period and accumulated period. So I think if you try to investigate from the Office of the Bureau of Statistics, I don't know of other mortgage institutions or other players within the housing sector. I don't know how many of them do render returns in terms of their contribution to the development of the sector. But I know most of the figures that have been read out in terms of number of houses, number of mortgages, and quantum of amount in terms of naira are closely associated with what we at the Federal Mortgage have been submitting as our returns to the Bureau of Statistics. But like other contributors have said, we need collaboration within the housing sector. Collaboration from developers. We have developers that are state-owned. We have developers that are private. We have developers that participate within the affordable space. That's what we call in Federal Mortgage Bank the affordable housing production line. These are houses that are built for mostly the low-income who are contributors to the National Housing Fund. And that particular sector is mostly funded by the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. So we have enough statistics on the affordable houses that we fund across the nation. But in terms of meeting the stock of houses we need in the country, it does not do justice to what we have. And there's a lot of requests on the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria to meet these affordable housing needs of the country. But if we're to go by what the contribution has been able to gather over the past years since inception, it is just a drop in the ocean. Recently, I was at a conference where somebody mentioned the amount of contribution that has been made by pensioners across the country. And it's mind-boggling that the pension scheme, the contributory pension scheme, which came up, I think, in 2003, between 2003 and 2005, we've been able to generate about 15.6 trillion in terms of pension fund. 15.6 trillion. But when we come to the issue of the National Housing Fund, which was started in 1992, I believe, we've not reached a trillion in terms of contribution. And we want the National Housing Fund to make the required impact in the affordable housing space. If we are to calculate that, okay, let's say we are going to offer half of the contributors to the scheme, which is, let's use a figure of 2.5 million, and we are to deliver houses maybe in the range of 7 million to 7.5, we need close to 20 trillion to deliver to just half of the contributors. Meanwhile, in terms of contribution, we have not reached a trillion. So these are the type of data that we need in the public space to be able to plan our housing and housing delivery correctly. Policy planners will not be able to plan such if such data is not readily available to them. But we at Federal Mortgage, we are ready to cooperate and collaborate with organizations that are willing to come up with platforms, data platforms that we can share data within the sector to be able to give correct and necessary information that is required for the planning of our sector and for delivery of housing to Nigerians. I know that our colleagues in NMRC have invested a lot in trying to come up with platforms. We are ready to cooperate and collaborate with them to come up with the necessary data ecosystem that is required for the mortgage sector and the housing sector, so that as players will be able to report correctly and informatively to the Nigerian public as to the performance of both the mortgage and the housing sector. I believe that's why the former Honorable Minister for Works and Housing has been questioning the figures that are bandied by various sources on affordable housing and the contribution of the mortgage sector to the economy. He has always told us at Federal Mortgage that he does not believe in these figures that are being bandied. And from the information we really have, those figures need to be verified. So that is why we need a critical data platform that will provide the necessary information for policy planners and for us as players within the sector to be able to contribute our quota effectively to housing delivery in Nigeria.
Let's quickly take a commercial break. When we'll come back, we'll present you with FMBN News of the Week.
The latest couple in town.
Good day, sir.
How are you? Oh, sit down.
Thank you, sir.
Drinks?
No, we're fine, sir.
How was the moon experience?
It was quite an experience.
How about house?
We are renting at the moment, but we intend to save enough to own our own house, right?
Why not avoid all those Shylock landlords and own a house upfront? With the average income and cost of building houses today in Nigeria, mortgage is the best option. No sweat. I tell you what, that was how I got my first house, and I've never regretted it.
To make good homes, and by implication, a good society, an individual is expected to have an abode from which to take off and return at the end of each day. At the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, everyone deserves a home. Come join us at FMBN and let's shelter Nigeria together.
This program is proudly sponsored by the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. Let's take the FMBN news of the week. And that's all we have for you on today's episode of FMBN Podcast. Please join us on another edition of the show next week. But before you go, follow us on all our social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok on 7TV Nigeria. You can also visit our website at www.7media.ng. Do well also to visit us at www.fmbn.gov.ng for more inquiries. Till I come your way next week, my name is Olachi Anigwa. Have a nice day.